Good morning. You're watching Much Ado About Something, and I'm Donna. If you're new here, welcome. And if you've been around for a while, then welcome back. Well, it's been really cold this weekend. Today's April 12th, and last weekend it got down to around 30 around here. Last Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, I thought we stepped back into winter. It was really cold. So we hadn't been doing too much in the garden this weekend, and this morning I'm just in here piddling around in my kitchen, and I thought I would just take some time and just share some things with you and have some kitchen thoughts this morning. Now, you know my kitchen is really small. It's been small since we've moved in, and it just seems like it gets smaller over the years. But I love my kitchen, and I've got it the way that I want it. I don't really have a big area, but I'm just going to give you a little rundown of it so you can know what it's like. This is the tea cabinet. And this is a big window behind it, but Donald inherited this cabinet from his grandma. When she passed away, he got this cabinet. It's really a pie safe, but I use it as a tea cabinet. And it's, I've done tours of that tea cabinet with you guys before, and I've shown you what's in there. But this window, I had a choice of a window or a dishwasher here, and I chose the window. And then when Donald inherited this cabinet, it went in front of the window because we didn't have a lot of other places to put it. But this is the dining area. I see all the plants crowded up to the door. They're trying to get light. I don't have a lot of natural light in this house, but I do love real house plants. So a lot of these plants are just here at this door trying to get some sunlight. It's starting to warm up here. It is spring, so eventually it'll warm up enough and I'll be able to take these plants, allow these plants outside, and they can get more light. But this is the pot rack, and I use a lot, most of the things on there. I have a lot of spoons and things. This is the little island center. We don't use paper napkins that often. We have cloth napkins, and this is where they are stored right here so we can get to them when we need them. If it's not convenient, then you won't use them. You won't do it. Right here, of course, I've shown you my dish drainer before, and I have water that sits out here at room temperature so I can water the plants as they need it. I don't have a lot of cabinet space. I've been wanting to pick up some extra dry goods to put, have on hand in case, things that are going on now. It's just a good plan to have some backup. I've got only 4 full-size cabinets on top, and then 4 full-size cabinets on the bottom, with one little skinny cabinet there in the corner. So I don't have a lot of storage in this kitchen. Over the sink in this area, that's where I keep, the glasses and the cups and things. And there's a lot of them because sometimes I have a lot of family and a lot of people that come over. And then over here, we just have the plates, and I reuse these little things for the kids' snacks. Their little bowls and things are in here. Then bowls and things that we use here. My cannon funnels and measuring cups. And these are just right where I know how to get to them, right when I need them. They always stay here, and I know, where to reach for them when I'm in here cooking. And these are a bunch of flavorings and oils and things that I use in this cabinet. And then I have these 2 little cabinets here over the range, and then there's 2 back behind the refrigerator. Of course, I can't get to those 2 behind the refrigerator. There's not anything in them because I'm not able to get to those. It's up over the refrigerator, and I have a lot of stuff there. But even if I didn't have the stuff, that would not be an easily accessible cabinet for me to store anything in. The one here, the 2 little small cabinets over the stove, I've got spices in and herbs that we grow. That's what's over this in here in these 2 little cabinets. And I do have a lot of spices and herbs right here over my stove or where I cook. Of course, you have the things that you use all the time, like salt and pepper. I've got the salt here. It's Himalayan salt now, but I do like Redmond salt, so I alternate. And then I've got pepper, cayenne pepper, and then finely ground Himalayan salt. And then I have a few little spices that I can get to just, that I can grab them when I need them in a pinch, like whole cloves and cinnamon, just poppy seeds, things that I can get to when I just need to grab them over the stove. Of course, there's the stove in the refrigerator. And then I have this cabinet that a friend of mine made. Well, they're friends of ours, Donald's friends of Donald and myself. Their parents, his father made this cabinet. When his father passed, they gave this cabinet to me and Donald, and it's a solid oak handmade cabinet. And I use it like I would cabinets here. Here are baking supplies that are kept in this cabinet. And then cookbooks. I have a lot of cookbooks. I store the ones that I'm using or that I'm referencing here. And then here's the 4 cookbooks that are my recipes that I've put together or used over the years, or family's recipes that I've written out, and I'm not sure the source. But those are my 4 recipe books that I've compiled from the recipes that I use on a regular basis. And of course, then I've got soup cups and more recipe books behind there. It's where I tuck things that I'm saving. So I really use this cabinet. That's the kids' snack cubby. I have an old wood stove, and that's what our microwave sits on. And of course, I have bulk food, so I have some of them sitting here by the island. This is the island that Donald made for me years ago out of 2 cabinets that he put together, and it's added some space. It's given me a prep area, and I'm able to prep a lot of recipes and things here. But I wanted to take a minute and talk to you about my spice rack. Donald made this spice rack. It's really just like a little shelf. And you can see these are some big spice containers. These are quart jars. And they're labeled on the bottom. A lot of these spices we grow ourselves. And like the cayenne pepper, and we grind it up, and some of it we don't. But this is our big spice rack. See, I've got a second layer back there. I've saved nut containers that have corks, and that's what I put. They both fit on this shelf. You can see back there, it's a second layer. But we got these jars from Donald's family's old home place. They owned a farm of more than 100 acres. It may have been 300 acres. I'm not sure how big it was. It wasn't a huge farming enterprise, but they had a lot of land and they farmed it. And back in those days, when we went for the family reunion, Donald was able to travel back to where the old first home site on that land stood. And back in those days, they didn't have, I guess, a dump place. They just had it on their farm. So this is where they would throw all of their old jars, all of their old containers. After they've used them, they would throw them in that dump place. And when we went for the family reunion, Donald went back there and he went to that old dump site and collected some of the jars that was in that landfill, their little landfill they had on their farm. And he got these jars. I think this one's a pretty one. So this is what these are. We brought them home and cleaned them up and sterilized them. And I found lids for them, and that's what we store our spices in them, because we love the jars and they have sentimental value to us. And they're good storage, and they're pretty to me. I just love them. I love that they're not the same. You know, I know there's a lot to be said by beautiful spice jars that are all the same, but after you live with it for a very long time, sometimes it's interesting to, mix things up. So I have some pint jars up here that have like whole cloves. I think these are ground cloves. Yeah, ground cloves. But that's our spice rack. And I cook from scratch, so you might think, wow, that's a lot of spices. But when you don't buy processed food that's already got everything spiced up in there, then you rely on your spice cabinet to spice your food up. When I make kombucha tea, this is where it sits. Oatmeal and popcorn. And I've got my little small appliance handbook there. It usually is put up, but I had pulled it out for something the other day. But I wanted to share with you a couple of my recipe books. This is a very interesting recipe book. Me and Donald, when we go out, we like to go to like the antique stores, the things in the area, and we picked this up, and we just thought it was so interesting because it had some recipes that we grew up eating, and we got tickled at ourselves. We thought, well, maybe we're white trash. We don't know. But Ernest Matthew Mickler, I think he's got 2 of these recipe books, and they're very interesting, very unusual. I'll show you the table of contents, and you can get an idea of how interesting the recipes are in this book. See, here we have cabbage, butter beans, Hoppin' John, and it's just some good old-fashioned recipes. And it teaches you how to cook some of those things in the South that, you hear about people eating, but you think, well, how in the world would they cook that? But this is a real interesting cookbook. Not usual at all. Over here on the vegetables and meats, you can see they've got a fried rabbit, broiled squirrel, fried squirrel, Butts gator tail, venison roast. There's Mama's brown gravy. I mean, it's just some interesting recipes in here that you just wouldn't find in any common recipe book. So we had to pick this up for sure. And that's a favorite of ours. We enjoy this cookbook. That's a specialty cookbook. It's not something I would use on an everyday basis, but it is an interesting one that we really like. Now this one right here, I don't know when I got this book. I don't know who bought this book for me, but I've had this book for a very, very long time. And of course it's marked. I use this one the most. It's got Mrs. King's grape leaf pickle recipe in it. This is the Betty Crocker cookbook. Of course, all these cookbooks right here are really good. If you're just starting out cooking and you want a good cookbook, pick up a cookbook like this. But here's Mrs. King's recipe. This recipe, me and Donald were talking about it. It has to be over 200 years old. She was 84 when she shared this recipe with me. And that's been quite a few years ago. And of course, this was her family's. So it was her grandmother's recipe. Well, if she was 84, her mother had to be, was already passed away. And then her grandmother, this recipe has to be at least 200 years old. And it's for grape leaf pickles. And that's something we love here in the South is grape leaf pickles. It's a brine pickle. And when she first shared her quart of grape leaf pickles with me, of course, it brought me back to my past, my childhood, when we ate grape leaf pickles, and then she gave me the recipe, and so that's the recipe that I use. And this is my little go-to book, recipe book for everyday meals that I want to make. It's this Betty Crocker recipe book. And then, of course, I have other favorites. And then you've saw me use these recipe cards, which I will eventually put into a book. These recipe cards that I show on my channel, I write these out because they're big, and I really use these recipes. It's these are go-tos that I pull out, things that I make quite a bit of. I'll pull these out and refer back to them as I'm making my dishes. So, and I have all these things in my recipe books that my kids have given me over the years. All my little love notes, and that makes it unique to my kitchen. Things that I save. But I surely do use these little recipes. And because I use them so often, I try to keep them handy. I try to keep the recipes here, in the kitchen where I can just access them. Even though it might not look that great, it's a practical thing that works for me in my kitchen. When I get a whole house full of people or a kid, I have 6 grandchildren. I have 3 children, grown children with mates, and I have family and friends that I love. And when I invite them over and get real busy, it's good to have my recipes and stuff that I use right there on hand. But getting back to storage and my cabinet space, this is the cabinet that I store food in up here. And it is maxed out. It is just packed. You can see I've got these commercially canned foods in here. And here I have home canned foods that I bring up from the basement, like green beans and maybe beef tallow and kraut, applesauce. I'll just bring up a few of these. We've got like a pantry downstairs that houses our home canned foods. I love to can. It does take a lot of energy, but I'm telling you, when you have a garden, this is one of the best ways that I know of to preserve that fresh garden taste. And you know what's in here. I mean, there's only 2 ingredients in here. Well, 3 counting the water. But it's green beans and salt and water. And that's it. And they've been pressure canned for 90 minutes. So when you open them, they're pretty much cooked. All you really have to do is warm them up and season them. But of course, you can see the difference in storage. Trying to store this can is a whole lot different than trying to store this can. The green beans that you buy from the market, you could stack these. You can put them in your cabinet and stack them, and they're not as big and more compact. This one takes a little more work to store them, but I think they're well worth it. I'll tell you, there's something about canned food. When you open a can, like this is red bud jelly that I made in a video, and if you want to look at it, look in my videos how to make red bud jelly. This is one of the jars of it. But I was saying, when you, like in the wintertime, I made this red bud jelly here. But if you store this and go down there in, say, November, December, and you get this jelly out, it's a taste of summer in a jar. It brings back a taste that you can't get in those winter months. And you can't buy anything like it. That's a unique jelly, and that's one of the things I love about canning, is that you can, the ingredients you're putting in here. The flavor. If you open this can compared to this can, you would know the flavor difference in getting this fresh out of the garden, getting it snapped and washed up and canned. It just has so much more flavor than this, and I don't know why, because I'm sure they can these similar. But just the freshness makes canning food well worth it. Of course, we grew up canning. Not everybody does. Donald's family were farmers, and my dad's family were farmers, and my mom's family, of course, was raised in the Appalachians, where we you harvested apples and you had gardens and things. So yes, we canned. And another thing about canning, when you can, is you'll have a jar. Like I opened these green beans not long ago, a few days ago, and I had to wash this jar, and now I have to store this jar. I don't have a lot of room in my kitchen, but I have managed to figure out a system where I can store my jars and pull out the food that we eat. And I will continue to can as long as I can get lids, and as long as that works for us. That's one of my favorite ways to preserve food, for the flavor and the longevity. I like dehydrating, but it's not my favorite. I dehydrate a lot of herbs, but I don't dehydrate as many vegetables, as I do can. I can a lot of vegetables. And here's just some spices. We picked this up at Home Goods. Donald wanted to try it. He loves tomatoes. And this cinnamon sits here on this island because he likes to add it to some of his drinks and things, because cinnamon is so good for you. And I just pick these jars up at thrift stores when I can, or antique stores if I can get them at a few price. I like to pay around $2 for them. And that's how I save a lot of the herbs that I grow and crush and use myself. I'll put them in these jars. It's a good way to keep them. But I have got to come up with some storage solutions so that I can, neaten up my space and get some of the things that I use on a daily basis stored. I think it's interesting. Your kitchen becomes unique to you. It's I'm in here. I'm doing a lot. This is a well-loved, well-used kitchen. So I'm always in here, and I know where everything's at, and it's organized for me. It may not appear organized to other people, but to me it's organized, and it's easy for me to work in. But it's not a lot of major storage space, but I have a lot of stuff. I love vignettes and antiques, and to see the things that I cook with. It's one of the joys of cooking for me, is to be able to look at my spices. That's the reason I don't have the labels on the outside of my spice jars, is because I just love to see all these spices in their jars. And my labels, are on the bottom. This one you can't really see it that much. It's here. But Donald, of course, has to have it labeled because he's not in here as much as I am. He doesn't know what all this is if it's not labeled. So I have all the labels on the bottoms. But I love to be able to look at my spices and to see them, to see my food, and it inspires me to cook, and it inspires me to eat. And I enjoy being able to see those things, to see things out. That's my personality. I am not a minimalist by any means. I don't want to not see and use my things. It's part of my living. I'm at home a lot. I spend a lot of time here, and I think maybe that has something to do with it, with personality, and with being here a lot, But this is my kitchen. It's what I use. It's what I work in, and there's a lot of meals and a lot of food that comes through this kitchen. I'm telling you, a lot of friends and family that I serve and love to do that. But that's just some little things I thought I'd share with you today in my kitchen. I hope it wasn't boring. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for joining me today, and like always, until next time.